and thus avoid dangerous situations.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome this occasion to rise in support of Bill C-62. I do wish to note I'll be splitting my time with my friend and my colleague the honourable member from Winnipeg North. This bill would repeal collective bargaining changes for the public service passed in 2013. Et abroger les dispositions.
Repealing these provisions of equitable, the ability to bargain, repealing provisions of the labour relations.
Combining these two bills makes no substantive changes compared to the earlier bills. It simply incorporates the adjustments necessary to combine proposals regarding sick leave, collective bargaining, and essential services for the federal public service into one piece of legislation moving forward. Let's begin with the contentious changes made in 2013.
Previously, bargaining agents were able to take full part in negotiations for essential services. However, in 2013, that right was changed, and the right was given entirely to the employer.
Longer give them the chance to determine which dispute resolution process they wish to use should the parties reach an impasse in bargaining. Instead, conciliation or strike was established as a default dispute resolution mechanism. Les conseils d'arbitrage de autres
arbitration councils and other union groups had to give more weight to certain factors when they were recommending the appropriate wage levels for civil servants. These and other changes were made without consultation with our public sector partners.
The government does not support such an approach. We believe the right of collective bargaining is vital to protecting the rights of Canadian workers, and we believe that effective collective bargaining involves discussion, negotiation, and compromise.
Now is not the time to roll back fundamental labor rights that unions have worked so hard to secure. Instead, we need to ensure that workers can organize freely, bargain collectively in good faith, and work in safe environments. To that end, in January 2016, the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Labour introduced legislation to repeal Bills C-377
525. The legislation will remove provisions that make it harder for unions to be certified and easier for them to be decertified. It also amended the Income Tax Act to remove the onerous and redundant requirements that labor organizations and labor trusts provide specific information annually to the Minister of National Revenue. These included information on non-labor activities that would then be made available to the public. Comme les honorables députés.
As the honourable members are well aware, legislation already exists to ensure unions are financially transparent and accountable to their members. Section 110 of the Canada Labour Code requires unions to provide financial statements to their members upon request and free of charge, making these additional reporting requirements unnecessary.
In a series of actions the government has taken to demonstrate our commitment to bargaining in good faith with public service bargaining agents. It fulfills a commitment we had made to repeal legislation that had provided the government with the authority to establish and modify terms and conditions of employment related to the sick leave of employees, establish a short-term disability plan outside of collective bargaining, and modify the long-term disability programs in the core public administration. It also restores labor relations regime that existed prior to 2013. It soutient également.
And it supports collaborative labor management relations. Mr. Speaker, labor unions play an important role in protecting the rights of workers and growing the middle class. And we respect labor unions and those they represent.
Service, I'm talking about the people who protect the health of Canadians by inspecting our food to make it sure it is safe for us to eat. I'm talking about the people who ensure Canadians have access to safe and effective health products by monitoring everything from medical devices to prescription medications. Mr. Speaker, it is public service employees across this country who administer income support programs such as Old Age Security Benefit that provides Canadian seniors with an important source of income. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, our public service employees come from all walks of life. They offer an incredible range of expertise and experience that the government draws on to ensure the delivery of services to people across Canada and around the globe. Mr. Speaker, if one truly respects our public service employees, one cannot abide an approach that disrespects and ignores the right of collective bargaining.
To be proud of the work they do, we want the public service to be a place that attracts our best and brightest minds.
We should think of the people who are graduating from colleges and universities. We want them to see the public service not just as a great place to build their career, but as a great place to build a country. And they only have to look at the incredible effort of public service employees.
Public servants supported the government's goal of helping Canadians achieve a safe, secure and dignified retirement by working cooperatively with their provincial and territorial counterparts so that Canada's finance ministers could strengthen the Canada Pension Plan. Yes, the enhanced Canada Pension Plan. In 2016, they answered the call to help their fellow citizens displaced by the Fort McMurray wildfires. Et ils ont travaillé.
And they worked tirelessly to welcome tens of thousands of Syrian refugees into Canadian society.
Mr. Speaker, when we encourage federal employees to give fearless advice, when we trust them to make responsible decisions, and when we respect them for their skill and expertise, these are the kinds of results that are possible. The bill before us today, C-62, is a strong proof of our commitment to restore a culture of respect for and within the public service. Et j'invite tous les députés.
And I encourage all members who believe in the principles of fairness and respect to join us in supporting Bill C-62.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? Question commentaire. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate comments from my colleague. And, you know, what's important, I think, at least in good part, to recognize in this debate is that in a very significant way, the Prime Minister, prior to the last election, met with and listened to a large number of public servants, a number of individuals that were leading the bargaining process. And what we found is that under C-59, when the Conservatives had brought forward that legislation in that insensitive manner in which they did, that there was a great deal of resentment towards the government and the harm that was being caused in regards to labour relations, to the degree in which this Prime Minister acknowledged that we would make a commitment to repeal those actions by the Conservative government. And that's, in good part, what this legislation is all about today. It is, in fact, a campaign commitment by the Prime Minister and this government, and we are materializing on that commitment. And I'm wondering if my colleague my colleague from the side here can just provide how important it is that we fulfill that commitment, therefore reestablishing a healthier relationship with our labour.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, my honourable colleague from Winnipeg North. When we were elected in October 2015, one of our platform commitments was to reestablish a relationship with both the public sector unions and the private sector unions from coast to coast to coast, to reestablish a relationship based on trust, based on faith, based on collective bargaining rights for all workers and those that have been certified recently. And we've done that. we've repealed or Bill 377, Bill 525. We put in place provisions, and we established a balance between the bargaining agents, both the employer and the employee. And that is something I'm proud of. That is something that my constituents back home in Vaughan Woodbridge are proud of, that we brought balance back into the collective bargaining process. We need to ensure when collective bargaining takes place, it takes place not on a unilateral basis, like my colleagues from the Conservatives like to do, and what they imposed when they were in government, but in a fair and balanced manner where people can come together, negotiate, and come to an agreement that is a win-win for both sides. So I'm proud that our government's fulfilled those commitments. I'm proud that our government continues to work with both the public sector unions and the private sector unions to ensure that we have a strong middle class, because we know when people are able and entities are able to come together, bargaining agents, negotiate freely, negotiate a great deal, that the middle class benefits, and with that, the Canadian economy benefits. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? Question commentaire. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Government House Leader.
Again, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the comments. One of the things that we often take for granted is the fine work that our civil service do for us, and that ranges in many different areas. And I know I'm going to have the opportunity to be able to speak a little bit about that shortly. But I'm wondering again if my colleague could just reinforce some of the important roles that our public service actually plays for all Canadians. And in fact, arguably, Mr. Speaker, you will find that our civil service is respected for what it does from around the world. And if you could provide just the quality of work that is provided through our civil service.
For Vaughan Woodbridge.
Thank you to my colleague for that question. You know, our civil service in two words is world class. All civil service can be looked upon by any country in the world in the delivery of the programs that we have for Canadians from coast to coast to coast, whether it is, the guaranteed income supplement or the Canada Pension Plan that's sent monthly to pensioners across this country, those that really built this country that we call home and that we're so proud to be a part of, whether it's the old age security, as I mentioned in my speech, or whether it's our trade negotiators or people working abroad for us in consuls across the world. It's folks all over this country that go to work every day and do the good work that Canadians expect them to do and expect us to do here in this House. And it's great to see that our government has returned some balance and also returned some pride back to the civil service, that they weren't being condescended to, being looked down on, and having imposed unilateral measures by the government that was in power the prior 10 years, that they're able to collective bargaining with the employee, with the employer, come to terms that benefits them, that their benefits, that their security and their pensions, that their sick leave, that things that they really care about, that when they go to work in the morning, they don't have to worry about. They can just focus on the great job that they do day in, day out, delivering those programs that Canadians care about and depend on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Resuming debate, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary